gravity. Here's 5 ways that you can learn how you can jump higher for basketball, and we're gonna start right now. Being able to bound off of one leg, or to juke somebody, cross someone over, and then jump off of 2 legs. Or if you have to bound and reach up for a rebound. All of these things require a large amount of force and your ability to increase your vertical jump. And to jump higher, your legs have to be stronger. And stronger legs mean that you have to train your muscles accordingly so that they can co-contract as many muscles as possible to create that stability, so that when you jump, you can apply a massive amount of force and in turn lead to a couple extra inches on that vertical jump or on that jumping capability. And so to jump higher, your legs have to be trained both bilaterally and unilaterally. And that's where we're gonna be as we go into these 5 key aspects to help you jump higher. If you plan on playing above the rim, it's important that we increase that impulse training or that impulse expression, especially if you want to be playing above the rim. We also have to focus on things like dynamic trunk control. What if we think about Vince Carter in the 2000 Olympics, dunking over a 7-foot dude, okay? We have to look at and break down real easily what's happening. There's a big change in shin angle, okay? When that change in shin angle occurs, that's gonna help load the quad. That's gonna help even load the hamstrings. And that's going to lead to greater jumping ability. That's gonna lead to understanding proper steps and how we can approach a big jump, understanding what our trunk position is doing. Our trunk is even gonna help us load the posterior chain, load those hamstrings. And then finally, we have to have the physiology in place, or we have to actually train our body to have the physiology in place to sense the amount of force that's going to be applied so that we can do that at very, very high speeds without being injured. And so we've got to understand the power step. We've got to understand that torso. We've got to understand the expression of strength at very, very high speeds when we're trying to propel our body. So how can we do this very easily right off the bat? We have to understand impulse expression, and that means moving heavy weight fast. So that takes us to that first key exercise. And this is a movement that Al Vermeil used a lot back in the day with 6-time world champion Chicago Bulls. This is going to be a 2-box power clean. Even Mike Gattone, he's a friend of mine who actually coached with the Chicago Bulls back in the late 90s and even into the early 2000s. They used a 2-box power clean because this was an exercise that raised the bar. And when you're talking about actually raising the bar off the floor, when you're looking at athletes that are 6'6", 6'8", 7 feet tall, there's a very long range of motion. We need to be able to train their bodies to move things as quickly as possible. And one of the big aspects behind the 2-box power clean is that acceleration. And if we can train an athlete to come off of 2 boxes, to extend their hips, and then the big aspect is getting into that fold quickly. When there's that rapid change of direction, the athlete learns how to absorb force very, very fast. Think about landing and then having to jump back up. That's a lesson that you can learn in the weight room, and the stronger you get, the more dynamic trunk control these athletes will have. Okay, so that's where the 2-box power clean comes into play. I would recommend doing this during the ascension phase, during the summit phase, as we're leading into peaks, as we're leading into the season. And then even during the season, doing 2-box power cleans with lower weight and moving it quickly. Okay, so let's say you do 60% of your max for 4 doubles. Focus on speed. When you're trying to build that strength base, you could do 6 doubles, 7 doubles, and you could do it over a time period and even see if you can build to a really heavy double at 85% or 88% of their max. Remember, these are long-limbed individuals, so they are not gonna be as strong with their absolute strength, but if we can increase their ability to accelerate, and if we can increase that ability to get into the fold and catch that weight fast, it's gonna transfer really, really well over to the court. Did you know that impulse expression benefits from a stronger muscle? I'm sure you understood this, but also one of the big factors is that stronger muscles lead to smarter, more athletic muscles. If we can stimulate growth through various different speeds, through various different ranges of motion, that leads to a more athletic muscle because the movement vocabulary triggered through different variables of coordination. And that's what's gonna take us into our next key exercise. This movement is going to train our strength and our speed and our ability to decelerate, which is a key concept around jumping capability, and that's going to be a single leg squat. We want to do an exercise that puts us in a very precarious position, makes us focus on our trunk control, makes us light up our posterior chain, and is also going to put us in similar positions that we might be in when we're out on the court or when we're actually executing a high speed jump. So if we do a single leg squat, okay, we can get set here, and we want that front foot forward, and we can go down slow if we really need to, okay? So we can go here, boom, up fast, okay? 1, 2, 3, up fast, and we want to train both sides. It's like a little warm up for me. Boom, up, boom. I would recommend doing your weak leg first. Now, the other thing that we can start to do here is that we can even do things a little bit faster. Okay, and I'm using the Garage Strength single leg roller and single leg pad. Those are both available at garagestrength.com. This is one of the best squat exercises for a very, very tall individual. Okay, it's gonna help make things a little bit easier to get that full range of motion when you're extraordinarily tall. So if I go here and I wanna focus on speed now, this is gonna help with my sprinting ability and also my ability to cut. Okay, so I'm here, boom, 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 and I need to focus on that rigid upright trunk. Boom, boom, boom. Now, if you're a basketball player, so let's say we're in season and we're doing the ascension phase. So we're trying to get stronger, but we don't want to be too sore before we have a big game. We can provide an alternative. And that alternative could just be doing an overhead single leg squat here. Okay, both sides. And you put yourself in that position while even strengthening your shoulders, okay? So use this, you can do 4 sets of 5 on each leg if we're trying to build up that strength. If we're trying to build up speed, you can do 5 triples at about 50 to 60%. Use this throughout the year to improve your overall strength, and even think about planting, okay? If I'm doing a power step here to really light something up, or if I'm planting to go up for a layup or a dunk, this strength is gonna improve tremendously from crushing those single leg squats. Now, what's the best accessory that we could possibly use when we're training to improve our jumping ability? Or what is even the best muscle group? You know, you could look at your calves, your tibialis, your quads, your hamstrings, okay? And we've got to think through that lens. And I really, really like to think about the hamstrings because I'm going to give you a hamstring exercise here. So it sort of was a trick question. I like to look at the hamstrings as a key component behind sprinting ability, but also behind our ability to stabilize our knee when we're planting. We want to look at the co-contraction in our hamstrings and in our quads. So we need to strengthen them with potential isolation exercises because that will help us. And then we need to use other exercises that we'll give you later in the video to help improve that ability to coordinate and co-contract. So in this case, we're going to give you that Nordic hamstring. Now, when I get set, I want to make sure that my toes are dorsiflexed, or my ankles are dorsiflexed, sorry. And I want to make sure that my hamstrings are already warmed up pretty well, okay? And I even think that you can do simple movements here, just focusing on holding that dorsiflexion and hip extension. We want to try and feel that biceps femoris and semitendinosus firing to bring our hips through. Remember, jumping is high speed hip extension. Okay, so we're here, boom, and this is gonna help us with that nice warm up. Now, the other big factor is that when we have a lengthened leg, we have a lengthened leg that leads to rapid flexion. We need to make sure that our hamstrings are strong so that we can apply that large amount of force. Our hamstrings are very, very fast twitch muscles, so we need to train them to be able to handle very, very high loads. And that's where that Nordic hamstring curl comes into play. So we just warmed up with those fast hip extensions. Now we can come down, and going through that range of motion, the eccentric portion is going to be very, very challenging. A lot of taller athletes will feel this almost right at the, like right behind the knee, or even at the top of the calf. They'll start to get calf cramps. They'll start to feel like their knees are gonna explode. Take it slowly, do it with a band, make it easy, deal with the calf cramp. It's gonna happen. For most people, it will happen that are very, very tight. But over time, if you're just doing 4 sets of 5, 5 sets of 5, something 5 sets of 7, and you're doing this as an accessory, especially during the exposure phase and the comprehension phase, it's gonna help you with your jumping ability later on. So we're gonna go down nice and controlled, and we can do a little cheat here to start, right? Go down, a little cheat, up, and then as you get stronger, ideally, hopefully I can do this early in the morning, I'm gonna be able to go down, I'm gonna touch my chest and come back up. I can already feel my right hamstrings lighten up. Ooh. Okay, that's the only one I'm gonna demonstrate. So you can do that, but make sure you warm up with that fast hip extension, and then you can get into the slow eccentrics with a band, with a little bit of a cheat, and then finally build into that unassisted Nordic curl. Now remember, we talked about making our muscles stronger, but also making them smarter. And if we can make them smarter, they become more athletic. And this is really where this next exercise is going to come into play. This is going to be a high-speed movement, recruiting multiple different muscular groups all at one time, okay? And it's gonna teach you how to be a little bit more athletic. And if you guys want more applied work, we've got an entire video on our other channel, Garage Strength, where we go over the 10 best exercises specific to basketball. Now, this is one of my all-time favorite movements for basketball players, is that I wanna get to a point where I'm being as explosive as possible and having high levels of coordination. So we improved our power output by lifting heavy weight fast, by doing that 2-box power clean, okay? Then we improved our unilateral strength and stability with the single leg squats, and you can do that high speeds if we wanted to, unbroken. Then we focused on our hip extension and our hamstrings, okay, with the Nordic curls. Now we're getting into a reflexive exercise, drop dumbbell snatch to the box. So we can go here, we wanna drop, boom. Okay, and we want to focus on, as we figure this out and we learn this movement and we get a little bit quicker with it, boom, we're just going nice and easy, right? But then over time we can go here, boom, boom, and we want to react quickly. Here, boom, boom, and we can go as fast as possible. Now, for starters, for beginners, we could even use a plate to a lower plate. So we're here, boom, okay? Here, as I fall over, boom. Here, boom. And remember, shin angles, shin angles, shin angles. Look at this shin angle right there. That's what we're trying to train at very high speeds while also extending our hip. If we drop this knee, that helps us accelerate, and it's gonna change our trunk angle as well. So we need to focus on that when we're doing our training inside of the weight room. These are exercises that you would do on impulse day or on athlete day, okay? So day 3 or day 4, that's inside of our app, Peak Strength. If you guys need help with your programming, head over to peakstrength.app. You can pick up our app for 7 free days of training. You can even go in and say, I wanna train specifically for basketball. If you don't wanna use it after 7 free days, you can cancel that at any time, but the worst thing you can do is nothing. Okay, so we talked about all these different factors around high speed rates of coordination with more weight, with the absolute strength movements, with the accessory movements, then with the reflexive movements. But there's other things we can still do. Okay, and this is another movement that you can use on athlete day or on impulse day. Okay, we want to focus on being as twitchy as possible. If we can build that strength and build that stability, we now want to do this at really, really high speeds. And this movement is extraordinarily simple. And this is another exercise that will transfer directly to that basketball court. Okay, and I want to do pogo jumps bilaterally with a touch. Okay, so I've got this net right here, and I want to work on, I don't know if I have the mobility in my shoulders to actually touch both at the same time, but I want to think about actually going up and grabbing a rebound with 2 hands if I need to. Okay, and this is where we're going to focus on also touch, go, as quickly as possible. Now we want to see that high speed game situation. Okay, and this is a variation too, after I demonstrate, that you could even use things like a balloon to throw in a little bit more agility work and get to a touch point. One of the big aspects that a lot of people downplay in basketball is the fact that you're making calculations with a ball, with opposing targets, while it's bouncing off of a backboard. That requires a large amount of mental calculations to be done at very, very high speeds. So that's where using something like a balloon can be very effective. So if we're here, just boom, 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 boom. And we want to try and see like 10 to 15 seconds. How many touches can we get? Can we raise the net 6 inches and still touch? Can we raise the net 6 inches and in that allotted time frame still be able to touch as quickly as possible? And that's the big factor here, is that we want to focus on our landing mechanics. Mine probably weren't that good because I wasn't paying attention very well. But we also want to focus on how quickly we react, how we're using our arms when we're jumping, how we're dealing with that targeted touch position, and that's gonna lead to optimizing our jump ability. Remember back to the beginning, we need to focus on that dynamic trunk control. In this case, if I'm falling all over the place when I'm landing, I'm not gonna be able to control my trunk to reload and get me back up to the net. Same thing with that shin angles. Same thing with how we're handling the force, getting into the fold. Remember, power clean, boom, we're into the fold. This is the same principle, just done at high speeds. So we've got to train all of these different aspects with all of these different movements. That's exactly what we do inside of Peak Strength. Remember, head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store, the Apple iOS Store. Download that today for 7 free days of training so that you can attain that peak strength. Because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.